Hey friends, what's up? Kaz here, and this week I'm going over the Factions plugin. This is a great little plugin. It just lets people be able to protect. It's kind of like Towny, only it's based upon warring, and your factions will claim land that they can protect. And then as they increase in power by killing other factions, by recruiting more members to their faction, and then they use that to claim more land and have more perks to recruit more people. That's kind of how it goes. It's a great little plugin. It's kind of up and good to go right off the bat. However, if you do want to tweak it, it is a lot of reading. It's a lot of it's very customizable, but it works a little bit different than most other plugins. I'm going to go over that shortly. By what are they called? MassiveCraft. This is a fantastic plugin. From what I can tell, it looks awesome. I haven't actually used it in production, but I've looked over the documentation, set up a test server, kind of played with it, and it just kind of goes. The setup is a little bit different than most other faction or most other plugins, faction plugins, because it relies on this M core. This is another plugin that they have that runs a lot of their other plugins that they support. It's kind of just a best. It's just the center. It's like a dictionary for them all. It has a bunch of procedures stored in them, stuff like that, that they rely on. The other thing to note is you do need to have Java 7 to run this as well. I mean, most new plugins are the run Java 7, but the other thing, so you gotta put factions and mcore in your plugins folder. So here's the server that we're gonna have, and it's gonna be running 164, which is the newest one. And we got our 2 jar files. I put on some other ones that I think that you need with running a faction server, but you know, that's by no means exhaustive. So you run your server, you see it's enabled, all that stuff, and how long it took. The other thing is, all right, so then usually when you get that enabled, you go into here and then you config it. Well, oh man, that's a lot bigger than the window. Hold on a second. Okay, here it is. So this is all that's in the config file for factions, and all this means is the command alias that it uses. So if you have a different one you want to use, like C or whatever, you could put that in there as well. This other bit you can just ignore. It's kind of the default store, and you probably don't need to do it. I guess right off the bat, I should also say this configuration is a little bit more in depth. We're not going to get into the game at all in doing this. This is all done on the backside of that. So this is the other thing for MCore, and you pretty much don't really need to edit anything in here unless you want it to point to a different server ID, all that stuff. So the area that you do want to edit is this new folder in the top level called MStore. So the main one that you want to edit is this mconf. This is going to have all the settings in it. Look at that. So many settings. So I'm just going to highlight a few. If you have a chat client like this one has Essentials Chat, they do recommend that you use that instead of their built-in one, just because it'll run a little bit better. So you can leave this at false, or you can use their built-in one and hit true. This just lays out some of the functionality in Hero Chat as well. Let's see, what else do we need to highlight? You got some prefixes that you can modify for leader, officer, and recruit, and the colors, all that stuff in here. Let's see, what am I looking for? I'm looking for... The next bit is worlds no claiming. So you can list the worlds that people can't claim in if you want to, like, so they can't protect land in like a resource world or a creative world or a games world if you have mini games as well. You can also, if you have a mini games world, you do no power loss. So when they die in that world, they don't lose any of the things. So that's pretty much it for highlighting that you really need to change if you want to. You can tweak all this stuff to your heart's content. I'll put links in the description to some further explanation of this as well. I'd also like to highlight in here if you go back, you have some default factions. These are in here by default. This is the free from PvP and monsters, like safe zone. I think this is wilderness. Oh no, that's the war zone. And this is the admin can set where these factions are. So this is wilderness by default, actually. Let's see, I think it's in, oops, here. This is where it sets faction, default player faction ID. So this is where you set the wilderness faction ID. So if you want them to, if you want to change the default faction that they join to be like a noob faction or something like that, you can change that in there. You can change the default role, stuff like that. It'll also, if you're running different universes, this would, let's see, I think that's in here. This sets the default for any new worlds as well, or universes that you can run it on, that kind of stuff. So, like I said, I just wanted to get this out there, get it up and running to help you out with the factions. It looks like a really great little piece, little plugin there. But it's just to note that all your settings are in this MStore folder, and once you know that, it's pretty easy to modify. The permission nodes by default are all set up. I'll post a file that you can download that will list all of the permission nodes. But by default, there's these kit nodes that they let you define, and by default, people are assigned to the kit rank 0, which has pretty much everything in it that they need. Then there's a few higher ranks that you can do, like your sub admins or moderators, stuff like that. They allow like kicking and different kinds of faction administrating. So you don't need to do a whole lot with the permission nodes. You just have to add, actually, I don't think you don't need to add anything. If you want to add, if you want to use it by default and add your moderators to a permission node, you can do factions.kit.rank1, and that'll add them to the admin permission node, which will give them access to modify any of the factions that are out there and help with anything that's going on. And then you could do like a sub admin and do the same thing, only rank 2. That kind of gives access to, like, they can join any faction, they can set the leader, officers, access, all that stuff. Gives a little bit more functionality over it. So it's up to you. Like I said, check out the file I download, check out the links. This it's going to take a lot of reading if you want to really customize it, but by default, you just run it like this and it's good to go. And then you can put Essentials Chat in there. You can run Vault, all that stuff. And that about wraps it up. I hope that was helpful. If you found it helpful, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. That always helps me out. I put out these tutorials every Friday, or I try to. If you have one that you'd like me to go over, please leave a suggestion. I read those. I try to comment and respond to every question. If you run into any problems, probably just want to post it on the author's page. It's in the description, or you could post it here, and I'll do my best to answer it. You can also download the server build from this tutorial in the description, and it should be pretty much ready to go. You might have to tweak the permissions, and that's all. I have a tutorial on that if you need help, and that is all. So Kaz, this is Kaz. I'm not talking to Kaz. Enjoy the game.
And a sock. I have a sock as well.
Just one sock. What happened to your shoes, man?
Shoes. You don't need shoes when you got a sock.
It's on your good foot, too.